Okay. All right. Well, let's go ahead and send it. We're back after some technical difficulties, and you don't even want to hear what we just went through. The internet in our building went out yesterday. That's why we had to cancel the stream. Literally within minutes of starting the stream, the internet went out in the whole building. And then an hour before the stream today, we get an email saying that there's probably going to be another outage at like 12:30. So I went into pure scramble mode. We're in a different location, as you can see here, set up all the gear somewhere else. So we're going to hopefully try to get through everything today. But thank you all for being with us. I'm here with Joe. We've got Colleen backstage. She'll be joining us in just a second. This is a special edition of the Growth podcast. Joe, did you want to tell people a little bit why we did this as part of the Growth live stream versus like a second standalone event?
Absolutely. CloneComp is all about growth. We're going to be having fun. We're going to be competing. We're going to be hanging out. But this is a growth opportunity for everybody. We at Finsweet are running this. We've created this for growth. We are having all of you as the Webflow community participate, and you can grow as participants. You can meet new people. You can win prizes. You can really get your name out there. So this is one of these opportunities for you to shine in the community, and that's what growth is all about. So it's not a, hey, we're taking a break from growth. It's very aligned with growth. So I'm really excited for this episode.
Yeah, and speaking of growth, the event has grown considerably. There's almost 1,000 people that are signed up to get notices about the event. Who knows what that turns into as submissions. So one of the things we'll explain today is how submissions are going to work and how the whole kind of competition is going to roll out. And so before we get too far into this, let's effing grow. Okay, so let's bring Colleen in here. What's up, Colleen? Hello, hello. For those who don't know,
great
Colleen,
to see everyone.
Yeah, hey. Colleen has helped organize. She helped organize the event last year. This was all part of our Sarasota Webflow meetup that we started. We got excited about doing different types of events. We started experimenting with like speed building competitions, and then we were like, how do we take this one step further? How do we take this cool clonable functionality of Webflow, the ability to just kind of copy and paste sites, build on the fly, and do something bigger? And so at the end of one of the speed building competitions, we got into this conversation, and that evolved into what became CloneComp last year. So Colleen, tell us a little bit about, getting here, planning, what you're most excited about, just give us a hello and tell us what has you excited about CloneComp right now.
Just kicking everything off. It's been so exciting watching all the email signups come in. I mean, it's just been a steady trickle. It's been exciting watching everyone joining the Slack channel. So if you're not yet in the Slack channel, we'll be going over that today, and everyone just sharing where they're from. Last year was so blown away by what we saw in terms of what people built. And I think this year is going to be even bigger and better.
Yeah.
So
yeah, Joe, maybe follow up on that and talk a little bit about the experience last year, kind of just seeing the stuff people built. It was completely unexpected, totally off the wall. This is not a competition where you're going to be building like a blog element or a slider or some tab components or something like that. So talk a little bit, Joe, about the feeling as you started seeing these like things come through. And that was the real special moment last year, is watching and going through some of these submissions. So maybe talk a little bit about that, give people an idea of, what's coming.
It's all about creativity, that there is a huge creative aspect to this competition that you just don't get on a normal marketing build. And last year, we gave people these very general cues, these very general storylines, and we watched people transform that into what they took it as. Yeah. So we saw different ideas, different strategies, different concepts. It was super creative. That's the best way to describe it.
Yeah, and I mean, games, scrolly telling experiences, and then I think the most interesting thing to me is the like building on top of, right? So like somebody built something cool day one, and then day two, lots of people are like, oh, look at what so-and-so built. I want to build on top of that. And so the story kind of forks as we go through, and we'll get into kind of all of that. So let's actually do this real quick. Colleen, I'm going to put you just on pause for 1 second. I want to get into our little, we're going to do a little disclaimer here real quick. And I just need the screen real estate. Otherwise, I'm going to cover your face. So just give me 1 second here. We're going to go into this disclaimer real quick. Joe, what is our disclaimer? We always start the show with a little disclaimer for the folks. So we do have a disclaimer about CloneComp here. What are our thoughts?
To be honest, I forgot what our disclaimer was. We talked about this yesterday before the show. What do we have as the disclaimer? We had two good ones.
Disclaimer. This is a technical competition. As we saw yesterday, this is all live. We're all on the fly and we're all learning. So, we're just asking for a little bit of grace as things happen. This is all new for all of us. And there's some technical complexity that we, like with the Gather event at the open house, there's some things that are kind of beyond our control. We're doing our best to kind of get our hands around all this, but we're just going to ask for a little bit of grace for not just us, but the other stuff you see, right? There's going to be a lot of people competing in this competition who are also learning, right? And so part of this is a learning experience. It's about giving other people opportunities to dive into really complicated or really simple Webflow builds and kind of learn on the fly. Last year, people told us that they learned more in 3 days than they did in like 6 months of using Webflow. And so if you're here trying to figure out like, is this competition too complicated for me? Should I be here? None of those things, should be anything you worry about. So I don't know. Any other thoughts as a follow-up? Did that spark any other thoughts?
Yeah, well, I'm just going to double down on that Gather Town comment, that when we had the global open house, when it first started, there was a massive amount of people that were coming in. So if that's the case, if we have an overloaded amount of people there, just come back in 10 minutes, come back in 20 minutes, reload your page. That we are working with this awesome software, but there are limitations and there is a possibility that some things go wrong. But we're very confident overall that it's going to be a great event regardless of what happens.
Well, and the other thing is to get into the Gather space for this, you will have to have an official RSVP to make sure that we don't overflow the space. And like one of the things we're doing is making sure that you're on our email list. So if you haven't registered on the CloneComp site, and actually that's something we're going to talk about today, you'll see something new on that site. There's a register and a login button at the top of that. So we'll describe exactly what that's about, but you will need to create an account to participate. And so with that being said, let's do something else. Let's go to this next slide here and let's bring Colleen back in and let's go into an official CloneComp overview. And Colleen, can you do me a favor? In the scramble here, I closed my tabs. Can you send me that slide deck in Slack so that I can pull that up here on the screen? And I want to just say hey while you're doing that to the folks in the crowd. So Maria's here, Jay Poucher always in the house. What's up, Jay? Adrian Lexington, one of our sponsors, Audio Velo, is here. Nam Beck, the Spike Saber, Simon's here. What's up, Josh Jacobs? Josh Jacobs is last year's CloneComp champion, so everybody a little respect on a reigning champ. Brandon Tancott in the house. Martin's here. Let's see. Penny, Peter, Mark, Wyatt. What's up, everybody? Yeah, lots of familiar faces. Magdalena, Ariel, Peter, Aviv. What is up, everybody? Okay, so Colleen, walk us through. How's it going to start? What do people need to expect? Take me through, the basics of the competition here.
Okay, so let's get into it. So from a 10,000 foot overview, so it's taking place next week, starting July 20th through 23rd. Though you should, if you haven't already, go to clonecomp.webflow.io, sign up for the mailing list, and Reimar just mentioned about the login and register button. So register for an account. Then next week, and we'll be getting into the schedule a little bit later in this, but basically at noon Eastern, we're going to be releasing a clonable. And with that, some secret surprises and a storyline. And we'll be doing this all on a live stream so that we'll be breaking it down so that you can listen to what it is that's going on. So let me just back up for a second in case I've lost anyone. So this is a story-driven competition. So going back to Joe's earlier comments, this is unlike anything, unless you participated last year, probably have never experienced something like this. And we'll be giving you out a clonable. You're going to be taking a look at that. You're going to be taking a look at the storyline, and you're going to be thinking, what can I do with this? Where can I take this? And you're only going to have 24 hours until noon the next day to submit whatever it is that you want to build. So you don't, this is a great opportunity to go back and listen to what last year's Rating Champ had to say. You don't want to get ahead of yourself. You don't want to build too much, because you are going to need to be able to get your submission in by the deadline, noon on Wednesday.
Yeah. And because it is story driven, we're going to release a small piece of that story every day. So you won't get the full 3 days of storyline. So for instance, last year, the story was you have 24 hours like to evacuate Earth. And then there was another piece of it on the second day where we talked about being lost in space. And then the third was like a time travel where you had to go back and you were able to kind of work on other projects or warp through time. It was like a black hole that you warped through. This year, the story is going to be much different. So we've got a whole different storyline, and Colleen's over there making sure I don't, give any of the secret sauce. But that's how it's going to go down. Day 1, everyone starts from a blank canvas, right? So we have some illustrations, some beautiful illustrations that we prepared this year. That's one thing that's different from this year, from last year. So last year, one of the things that people said is that it was difficult to also design the assets and build. And so this year, we're going to provide some stock illustrations that match with the storyline. And so you can use those, and we'll show you an example of how you could use that together. And so we'll give you, in the Master Clonable this year, we'll give you like a baseline of something like what you might expect to see. And then you can either build off of that, you can start from a clean canvas, you can use the illustrations, or if you want to create your own illustrations, you can feel free to do that too. There are no real rules. As long as you just follow the daily storyline prompt, that's kind of it. And the reason, well, anyway, because it's fun to watch the stories evolve. So you just got to go through and just play by the rules, and it'll all be good. Okay, Colleen, do we miss anything? Joe, any thoughts about that before we move into the next little step?
Yeah, quick. I'd like to further clarify. You said stock illustrations.
Oh.
And when I think of stock illustrations, I'm thinking of going to like freepick.com and downloading some cheesy free illustrations.
No. Sorry.
These are stock for the event,
yes.
But we have custom created these beautiful illustrations. So you're not going to get these cheesy illustrations. Yeah. It's going to be top quality.
They're gorgeous. Luca did an amazing job. Yeah. It's going to be.
Let's talk about that. So
yeah,
we found Luca from Critique. Get this, one of our critique submissions, I was so impressed by his illustration work that I reached out, and we were trying to find a way to collaborate. And we said, hey, we have this opportunity to illustrate for CloneComp, and he accepted. So our live shows are now coming together and cross-promoting and cross-helping each other. So that was really cool that we connected with Luca. He's done a wonderful job with these illustrations.
Yeah, I agree. They are fantastic. And I've had fun. I'm building the example clonable that we're going to share with you all. And, it's been a lot of fun because I'm not an illustrator. So to play with some assets like this and to be able to build something, it'll be exciting to see. So, okay. So did we cover enough? Are we missing anything, Colleen, about the gist of this here?
No, I think some of these other pieces, like the secondary live stream, will be go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about that. The format. Okay. Last year, we just did one stream each day. So what happens is day 1 at noon, we kick off the stream. That'll be next week, next Tuesday. Vlad will be with us at noon to kind of kick off the stream. And that's when everything starts. From there, it's 24 hours. So every 24 hours, we have a checkpoint at 12 p.m. So on day 2, at the end of round 1, we will have a noon checkpoint where everyone will kind of be doing their submissions. Because of the way the competition is going to work this time, and because of the number of submissions, we probably won't be able to review everything on that show. So we're going to give you a highlight. We're going to give you an overview of kind of what's happening during the competition. And then at 6 p.m., after we've had some time to judge, review all the submissions, let you all vote as a crowd, and then let the judges do some of their work, we're going to do a recap stream. And so at 6 p.m., we'll take kind of the top submissions as it's going and do an overview of day 1. And that'll happen every day. So we'll have that noon touch point, which will kind of be submission check-in. We'll have volunteers helping and answering questions about how to submit your projects. And then at 6 p.m., we will have the secondary stream, except for the final day. The final day, the stream's at 5, and that's the award ceremony. So we'll have a noon That's on Friday. So Friday the 23rd, we'll have the final submissions are due at noon. And then we'll have 5 hours to do all the judging and everything. And we'll talk a little bit about the specifics on that. But let's say a real big thanks to our sponsors here, because this obviously wouldn't be possible without the support of everyone who is giving time and money and effort here. And so big shout out to Webflow stepping up as a platinum sponsor. They put up a bunch of money here. They're helping us with promotion, et cetera. And so great on their end. And obviously Finsweet for putting this together. We've got designers working on this, developers working on this, volunteers. Like, it's just a ton to organize something like this. And so kudos to everybody that's kind of involved in that effort. On the gold level, Lottie files. So we have a custom CloneComp Lottie file that's in the tank that's coming. And you will be able to use Lottie files during the competition. Last year, you know, we saw some Lottie files. I expect this year we'll see a lot more Lottie files. Weglot is another sponsor. We're going to use their 3D Globe to kind of showcase the 3D Globe collaboration we did with Weglot to showcase like where the participants are coming from all over the world. Edgar Allen, great agency. They're very active in the no-code space. They stepped up. They've helped us do some copywriting and other things. Refocus, another agency. So there's like these agencies that kind of collaborate in the space. We've talked about why that's important in the past. We won't get too deep into that. And then JetBoost is actually powering some of the crowd voting. So yeah, we're using all these tools. As you'll see in the next, actually one more. So Pixel Geek stepped up. You know, he's always involved in the community. Pixel Geek, if you're out there in the crowd, we love you. We appreciate you. You do so much for this community, and we appreciate how you stepped up. He will be picking the top story-driven site. So one of the prizes that we'll discuss later will be a story-driven, like the best story-driven site. He's going to help us pick that one. The folks over at Flow Ninja also stepped up to sponsor a stream. So next week, you'll be hearing a little bit more about them. And then Noble Airtable, we're using that to handle the submissions. So all the submissions are going to come in from an Airtable form, and they will be spit into Webflow using the Noble Airtable app. Let's see. And then on the community side, big shout out to Webflow Wizards, who's Aviv. I think I saw him in the crowd earlier. He was one of the round winners last year. MemberStack stepped up with some money, as well as we're using their login functionality for the account portals. Rockship, Eric, let's see, Flamingo, iHeart No Code, and Audio Velo, like we said. Adrian's in the crowd, and then Connor Finlayson. If you don't know Connor Finlayson, I'd recommend you check out his YouTube videos. He's doing a lot of cool stuff in the no code space. So let's jump into the next step. Can we talk a little bit about the ways people can actually participate here?
Yeah, so a little bit of a departure from last year. I mean, last year it was basically the only way to participate in CloneComp was basically to compete. This year, we've opened things up so that not only can you be a competitor, if you don't want to compete, maybe you don't have the time, maybe you feel like you don't have the skill set, or for whatever reason, you can be a spectator. So that means participating and joining events in the Gather space, which you can kind of see a little bit here in the background. It also means that you should be helping vote for your favorite projects and being part of the crowd vote. Also, another opportunity is to be a volunteer. So this event is much bigger than last year, and while only a couple of us pulled it off last year, this year it's at a next level, and being able to have support as a volunteer is gonna mean a lot. And without it, we're not going to be as successful as we potentially could be. So if you're on the fence, and planning not to compete, I'd suggest being a spectator or being a volunteer.
Yeah, great. And yep, go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say, should we dive into what some of that means on each of those?
I think what we should do is let's share the volunteer link in the comments for people. We're doing some open houses and some, like, if you want to early look at the space, if you want to get involved as a volunteer, click on the Airtable form that is going into the comments here shortly. And let's maybe even pin that at the top. So there's just a couple different roles. We need help kind of helping people answer questions, right? So if you are good on Slack and you want to help us kind of answer questions and direct traffic, we have some roles for you. And the biggest thing we need help with right now is kind of judging all the submissions. We think we're going to get a significant number of submissions on the first day, and we'll talk a little bit about how scoring is going to work, but we that's going to be the hardest part, is making sure that we have enough people to review all the submissions so that we don't shortchange anybody. And so that's the biggest call to action. Again, can we have somebody share the link to the Airtable volunteer form in the comments, Colleen, or maybe somebody from Finsweet, and let's go ahead and pin that. Should we do a little look at the space? Is that too
Nice.
crazy? Is that crazy?
No, that's not too crazy. Let's go for it.
It seems like it's a good idea, right? Let's do that.
Very good.
Oh, you open this room in another tab. Oh, I want to do it here. I want you to open it here. Uh-oh. I have so many tabs. Y'all, don't judge me, okay, when you see what's about to happen on my screen here. Let's close this. Okay, join the gathering. CloneComp. All right, I'm already giving you guys secrets. So there's going to be a maze inside of this that is fairly interesting. So there's going to be a prize dedicated to just whoever can win, get through this maze, which is not an insignificant challenge, by the way. And so I'm trying to think what's the best way for me to get out of here. There we go. Let me go back to the front. Okay, so we're going to have, and maybe you guys are familiar with Gather if you're not, but you'll kind of come into this space here and you'll be able to explore, come through the sponsors. And if you're familiar with our co-working space, you know that we have this little Stonehenge, but we've rebuilt the entire map. So there's so much to explore here. I actually don't want to show a lot because I want to see people's reaction as they kind of go through this. But let me just show a little bit about this build space and talk a little bit about how this is going to play. Because one of the things that we're going to do, if you know anything about Gather, is that they allow you to create these private spaces. And inside of a private space, it's essentially like a Zoom call. So if somebody else was inside of this space with me, I would be walking into or stepping into a Zoom call with them. So imagine I'm a participant and I step into a booth here and I decide to share my screen and share what's going on. As people walk into this booth, they're going to be able to see my screen, right? And this is kind of exciting because we're going to have public build sessions where people will be able to be in the space and you'll be able to just kind of walk through and see what other people are building, which is not something we did last year. It's not something that was possible last year. And so we've got room for a ton of people to be in here building and playing around. Look, just like you might see at a big convention, we've got booths for all the sponsors here where you can kind of go through and interact with their content. Maybe Nelson will be hanging out over at his booth so you can go and chat with Nelson a little bit and see what's good with that. I don't know. It's going to be so much fun. There's so down my CPU here doing both of these at once, but it's going to be, it's going to be unlike anything. Like Colleen, Joe, like tell me a little, like what are you excited about? Like as you see this, what are you thinking?
Well, I think you're right in that this has never been done before. We have this type of setup all the time in real life, face to face. We don't have it on this digital virtual side. So we're taking this real life action and putting it into this virtual video game type experience. So yeah, I'm just blown away by the attention to detail here, by the thought that went into all of these spaces and how we can interact with each other. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, this is where, again, going back to the disclaimer, we're innovating here, right? Like Gather's a brand new platform. This type of event is just it just doesn't exist, right? Like we're all just learning over the last year how to do these interactive virtual events. And so we're experimenting, we're playing. Again, there's so many Easter eggs to explore and find in this map. It's just going to be a total blast. So let's jump to the next. Let's go through. This is probably what people are kind of expecting here. So they're interested in the rules and the FAQs. So let's do a deep dive into the process. Let's see, what's the best way to do this? I don't really want to just read the rules and FAQ, but part of me thinks like we should do something like that because I think a lot of people will not actually read them. If we could give one piece of like advice is just go read the rules, right? Go read top to bottom and read the FAQs. We kind of explained it at the beginning here, but there's no formal like registration process for CloneComp, right? So a lot of people are asking, well, how do I sign up? How do I register? you have to go create an account, but to register officially, you just make a submission on the first day. So it's just important for you to know how to make formal submissions. So Colleen, maybe we should go through that process because people are going to register with their Webflow user ID, right? And this is kind of an important identifier. This is going to be your unique identifier, is that when you register on the website, you will be asked, right? If I click register here on this website, it's going to ask me username and my Webflow profile URL. And there's a little video here that some folks from our team, Emmanuel on our team, put together that explains how to go find that. But we should all be able to figure out our Webflow username. It's just important you get this right. All of your submissions, all of the competition tracking, the scoring, literally everything that has to do with this competition is going to be tied to your Webflow user ID. So this is one of the most important steps, is when you register, make sure that the username is correct and that the profile URL is exactly right. So there's 2 chances for you to check that. Go copy and paste it directly from your Webflow profile and into here, and then create an account that you can remember. And for those who don't know, we're following Webflow's code of conduct here. So make sure you take a look at Webflow's code of conduct as far as what we expect, and anything that you need to think about as it relates to the flow of the event itself. So we're kind of starting or setting up.
At some point into the type of a Webflow account.
That's what Adrian was just saying. Free account isn't enough. You have to have a light or a plan. And this is because you need to have showcase your sites inside of the Webflow showcase. So the site on the Webflow showcase, and then bring the right, because that's where people are going to be able to clone the project. So we need to be able to the site, you'll make it clonable, and there's articles in the FAQs about how to do that. And then you'll come and make the submission on the CloneComp website. And that'll be a function of basically finding your Webflow username, making sure it's your right username because you're submitting a website for yourself, adding the showcase URL, and then if it's a second or third round, you will also have to let us know who you cloned the site from, right? So which Webflow user, which again, you should be able to find from the showcase page where you cloned the site. So you're just gonna have to copy and paste the URL and the Webflow user profile of the site you cloned in order to make that formal submission. So any other specifics there? Any other details we need to? I can't emphasize how important that part of all of this is.
Yeah, we did run into. No, so if you are not sure what kind of account plan you are on with Webflow, I'd suggest that before you start competing, that you go and take a look and make sure that you are on the right type of plan, because you do need to have. If you're not in one of those plans, it's there's not a fee to participate in this competition, but you do need to have that right plan so that you're able to showcase your work.
Okay, what is our next step here? Let's see. Okay, any other key rules and FAQs that we need to go through? Do we want to walk through this process again? Does anybody have questions about this? Adrian, another good point. The showcase search is going to help here. Tag your sites with CloneComp, right? When you showcase the project, you can add tags, add that CloneComp tag. The other thing I worry about is people finding last year's submissions, but that's okay. We will also have a gallery on the CloneComp website. So when you're logged in, you will have a gallery in the actual dashboard where you'll be able to explore submissions and sort them based on crowd votes. And you'll be able to kind of see all the submissions as they come in, and we'll also have a raw Airtable feed. So when you make a submission, you can see the Airtable view with all those submissions coming in real time, so you can check, okay, did my submission actually get in? Those will all be time-stamped, okay? So that's how we're gonna give priority, and that's how we're gonna have cutoffs. If you submit a site late, the site submissions is noon. The deadline each day to submit your website is noon. So we're going to have a soft cutoff at noon with an hour grace period. But if you submit your site during that grace period, you're going to lose a point. You're going to lose a whole point in your score metric. So get your sites in before noon. And the reason, this isn't just arbitrary, it's because the number of sites we're going to get and the amount of work we have to do to get that all queued up, get into the volunteers' hands, get everything set up so that we can run smooth, needs to happen on a real timely manner. So if you're submitting after the 12 o'clock deadline, it's slowing us down, it's creating hurdles, and so that's why we're going to ding you, right? And typically, if you end up with a full point deduction, you're probably out of the money, out of the running for the round specific prizes. And if you're late, I think you're not, I'm not sure. Well, if you're late after 1 o'clock, you're not eligible for the grand, for the total prizes, but you're still eligible for the, go ahead, Colleen.
I was gonna say, if you're late after 1 o'clock, the submission form will be gone.
Gone. Bye. Just won't be able to submit.
So you won't be able to submit at all. And then that means you are not eligible for cash prizes, because in order to be eligible for that, you need to have submitted all rounds.
Yeah.
So very important that you get your submissions in on time. We'll be having volunteers around that, you know, in the morning. So if you're starting to have issues, starting to have questions, they'll be there to help you. If you are having issues for whatever reason, make it known before the noon deadline. Because if you come to us at 12:30 p.m. Eastern or 1:30 p.m. Eastern, you know, we don't necessarily know that you actually were trying to get your submission in. So if there is an issue, ask for help ahead of time. And please don't wait until 11:45 a.m. Eastern. If everybody's waiting till 11:45 a.m. Eastern and everyone's looking for help, you know, that probably will overwhelm us. So try in a little bit before, try not to push it to the exact 11:59 a.m.
Yeah.
Would be appreciated.
Yeah. and it'll also, the earlier you submit your site, the more likelihood there is that we get a chance to review it and maybe showcase it during one of the streams, which again is going to help your odds of having people clone it. And so maybe I'll talk a little bit about how the scoring will work, because the hardest part for us, I think, is day one. Because day 2 and day 3, once I explain how scoring is going to work, will be a lot easier for us to manage. But day 1, we really don't know how many submissions we're going to get. And it could be 300-400 submissions. If it's 200 to 300, we think we're good. If it's above 300, we're going to get tight as far as like managing the flow. But the judges have a scoring rubric. And so they'll be going through and kind of judging on these different rubrics. And we're going to make sure that at least 2 judges score each of those first round submissions. If we can get 3 judges, we'll get 3 judges to do each of those. But just due to time and volume, we don't know how that's going to work out. Day 1 is basically all based on judges' scores and crowd scores, because we don't have any clone counts, right? We won't have a count of how many people have cloned what site or, you know, like any other metrics. Day 2 and day 3, we will know kind of who's cloning what site and what sites are being popular. And that's going to play a big role in the scoring this year, right? Last year it played a big role. This year it plays an even bigger role because this is what the competition is all about, right? How many people did you influence with your submission who decided to start their next round of this competition from your starting point, from your baseline starting point? And so that's the kind of the spirit of the competition. And so we're using that metric. So day 2 and day 3, we will have a lot of information about how many people are cloning your site. And this isn't just cloning your site. So don't think just if you like publish something in the showcase and 1,000 people clone it that you're going to win the competition. It's how many people cloned it and used it as a starting point for their next round submission. So it's not just a popularity contest about the maximum number of clones. It's about how many people decided to start their next day round with your project. So just something to think about. Did I miss anything there? Any other important piece that we need to tie into that stuff?
I would say maybe make a little bit of a distinction. Last year, we were looking at likes and clones on the official Webflow showcase. This year, we're going to be looking at the gallery that is on the CloneComp website itself. So as part of the submissions, you know, who's marking, and this is where that Webflow ID gets very important because if you get that wrong, people aren't going to be able to credit your work, which then is going to impact the counts for your particular project. And it's also where we're going to be using, JetBoost for the favoriting and the likes. So if you have plans to think that you can game the competition by somehow putting a bunch of bots on the Webflow showcase or something like that, that's not going to work. It's all going to be based on the activity within the actual competition.
Yeah, and Pablo brings a good point up here. Submitting early also gives you more exposure, 100%. If you're in that gallery early, if you're there when people are going to look for their next round submission, the odds are you're going to get more exposure. So that's actually a really good point, Pablo, that you're bringing up there, is that you want to get in front of as many people as possible. Last year on day one, there was probably only like 50, 60 submissions, I think. We had 106 total submissions last year. I think we'll get 200 to 300 on day one, and it could be considerably more than that. So it's going to be hard to actually go through and scrub and figure out which of these is the right site for you to step up and like build on the next day. And this is why the crowd vote is going to be so important. We will need you all to kind of be our crowd judges to help us kind of get through some of this. And so even if you're not participating, go to the CloneComp website, register an account, and that way you can, take part of the voting. You must be logged in to vote and to kind of see what's going on. And so, yeah. Any other thoughts as it relates to that? Nope. Okay.
Nope.
Joe, any tips or advice from people who may be thinking this is a little intimidating, or as people are like looking at this? It's a lot to think about here as the competition goes through. So any advice or thoughts for people as they're like pulling their, making their decision as to whether they're going to, compete or not this year?
Yeah, I love to say that this is not just a skills competition. The winner is not necessarily going to be the best Webflow user. It could be the most creative Webflow user, or it could be the Webflow user that understands storytelling the best, or the person that is just doing something that nobody else is doing. So if you're thinking, hey, I may not be good enough for this, this seems like too big of a competition for me, just do it. You're going to learn, and you don't have to win. You can have a great time, learn a lot without winning. And if you want to win, you don't need to be the best. That's a powerful thing. And that's what this whole competition really encourages. Yeah. Creativity, having fun, doing cool things.
That's a really good point, actually, to maybe harp on in a couple other ways too. The goal here is to captivate the audience. And the story is going to make it easy for you to do that. The illustrations are going to make it easy for you to focus on just maybe doing the layout or the interactions, or, not so much focused on like having to build all these assets. But your goal here is to kind of stop people in their tracks, right? You want people to scroll and see your site and just be like, oh, okay. And this doesn't necessarily have to be the best design. Sometimes the best design will work, but it could not fit into a style, or it could be too complicated for me to build on the next day. Right? If you build something crazy complicated and it has integrations and it uses some custom JavaScript or a Lottie file that I can't update or modify, like you could be like crippling yourself in the future rounds, even though it looks and feels amazing, right? It's the cutting edge, most beautiful design. And so like, I think finding ways to have some simplicity, and this is where maybe Josh or the two Joshes, last year CloneComp was swept by Joshes, so let's unseed the Joshes, and there's rumors going around that one of them sabotaged, that Josh Fry sabotaged the stream yesterday. I'm gonna blame him as opposed to taking any responsibility for the utility failure. Okay, any other thoughts there before we move into, I know we talked about the schedule a little bit, but I want to run through the schedule in a little bit more detail fully here. Are we good to move forward, or is there anything else?
No, I think those are all good pieces. Just pace yourself and plan. Yeah.
And that's a good place, pace yourself. But also, you're probably going to need to dedicate some time for this. CloneComp last year, I don't think people really understood, and this is actually the perfect transition into the schedule. Most people didn't really understand the amount of time that they might have to dedicate to this. And I think we didn't do a good job of kind of setting the expectation that this was going to be like an actual hackathon type event. We actually, when we first started talking about it, thought about capping it at an hour-long worth of build time. Because these started as speed building challenges. And so we were doing these like fast, quick build things. And then we were like, you know what? If we're going to have day-to-day competition, like, what do we want to set a cap on how long you can give, right? If you want to spend 20 minutes, okay, cool. Maybe you're super talented and you could build something amazing in an hour. Like, I'm sure some people will spend a couple hours on a project and build beautiful things. But maybe you want to spend 10 hours on something. And so there are people who have blocked off their entire calendars for next week. So just understand that the competition is going to get pretty intense here as it relates to that. So let's go ahead and push this schedule up here. What's happening? There it goes. Okay, schedule of events. And actually, let's come over to the screen. Let's open this up. And I'm going to let you all run through this. I don't necessarily want to run through the full schedule, but I just do want to run down. It's a little confusing. It's a 4-day competition with 3 full rounds. And so we even get confused a little bit. We talk about day 1, and sometimes people say day 1 to, round 1. So it's like there's a 3-round competition that takes place over the course of 4 days. So round 1 is from day 1 to day 2. Round 2 is from day 2 to day 3. Round 3 is from day 3 to day 4. And so because they go from noon Eastern to noon Eastern time, it can be a little confusing. But just know that that's how it's going to work, right? It's a 3 rounds, 24 hours each round, that span the course of 4 full days. Each day, like we mentioned before, at 10 o'clock. Actually, let's go through this. So at 10 a.m. on the first day, you can start checking in. The space will be open. The space. Actually, we might open it a little sooner than that so people can familiarize themselves with it so that right at 10, they're not. So maybe on the 19th, we'll open up the space. So just make sure you're registered for updates to keep up with any of that. We'll begin our first launch countdown at 11. We'll actually probably go live around 11:30. Vlad will join us at noon, right? So noon on July 20th, which is next Tuesday, is when we're going to kick this whole thing off. We'll release the master clonable. We'll republish the site with any other details. And what happens is inside of that master clonable, we'll add a new element of that storyline each day. So on the first day, there'll be 1 story block available. On the next day, there'll be 2 story blocks available. And on the third day, there will be all 3 story blocks available on that master clonable. You don't have to clone it each time, but just go back to that master clonable to find the next piece of the story. And it'll be linked in your dashboard. So everything will be in your dashboard inside of the CloneComp site. And maybe I'll show you that dashboard here in a second, if I can remember what my login password is. Okay, so that'll go till 1. The first stream from noon to 1, we'll just kind of be recapping. Just like I showed you before, we might be walking around the space and checking out what other builders are doing. We might say, hey, jump into the space, find a desk, put your screen share up. So when we walk by, you can explain what's happening. And we'll be jumping around and kind of interacting with people as they're building inside of the space. And so that'll happen around 1 p.m. And from there, it's time to build. We'll have some spaces where we could do some hangout stuff. Maybe we can do some brainstorming. If people want to have some breakouts, we could facilitate some of that to help you guys think about what you might want to build or how you might want to approach the competition, and maybe answer some questions about any logistics that you may have in real time. And so that'll happen at 6 o'clock that day. We'll have a recap. And so all these streams are available on YouTube, but also inside of your participant dashboard. So let me actually step out. Let me see if I can log in. Colleen, what else do people need to be thinking about as it relates to the schedule here? Because we kind of ran through, it's going to follow the same thing day after day. Check in at noon, recap at 6. Check in at noon, recap at 6. Check in at noon, happy hour and award ceremony at 5. What else do they need to know about? What else is important for people to think about here?
So just think about you are at noon, basically that is your deadline for the work that you've just done. And then that's when you pick up what you need for the next round to move on. And if you're thinking, oh gosh, I don't live in the Eastern time zone, I don't live in the United States, that means I can't compete. No, whatever that noon is for wherever it is that you are, that's when content's available. So we've tried to make this on these 24-hour cycles, so it doesn't really matter where you are. Everybody's getting the same amount and on the same cycle.
Yeah.
If hopefully that.
And last year, there were a lot of people from different countries that I would say, 80, 90% of people were outside of this US time zone. So if you're from somewhere else and this is a weird time, just consider changing your schedule or consider building off of normal hours here, and you can still participate. We didn't really have any issues last year with it.
Yeah. I am not, I'm trying to see if I can log in I wanted to show you the dashboard, but I was joking about being able to remember my password, and I actually can't. So by the end of the show here, I'll get that. I'll get my password. And I created all these test accounts, right? So it's like I've been testing with different emails and stuff, and like I actually don't remember which is the formal one that I did for my proper address. So anyway, we'll show you that in a second. Let's review the prizes before we do that. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the prizes. Yeah, that's a good point. Adrian's, hey, he's going to get the assist for the stream here. Let's see. Is there a link for global time zones? Yes, in the dashboard and in the rules. If you go to the rules page at the top, there's a link that you can click that'll translate, our time to whatever your local time zone is. And so that way you can kind of have that top of mind. Prizes have gone up. So we talked about that before. We've added some new prizes, and let me see, I have to get rid of this. Okay, let's go to this view. Okay, so we've increased the prices a little bit, and we've added some prizes. So first place is now $5,000 cash, which was my goal from the beginning. So we did some recounts, we pinched some pennies, and we figured out how to get this thing to $5,000 for first place. We think that's a super juicy prize, right? That's like a nice web project, when I was freelancing, I'm in for a $5,000 web project. Probably now that's outside of my threshold, but I think a lot of people will get excited about spending a day or two building for that. Plus the trophy. The trophy and bragging rights is really what this is all about. So first runner-up's getting $2,500. Second runner-up's getting $1,500. The best story-driven website, which again will be be selected by Nelson, was going to take away $1,000. The crowd favorite. So somebody's going to win based on your vote. So you all, this is why it's important to log in and create an account on the site, get into that dashboard, explore the gallery, and really be voting, because somebody is going to get a chance to walk away with $500 based on those votes. So this is where you can call your friends, have everyone start spamming the account, like whatever, just go in and like crowd favorites. Don't do that. I'm just kidding. I didn't say that. Round winners, $250. So there'll be 3 round winners. We talked about there's 3 rounds of the competition. Round 1, round 2, round 3 will each have a $250 cash winner. This will all be announced at the awards prize. So we won't announce these daily. We will announce that all at the end. Connor Finlayson is going to help us pick the best integration. And so if you use a Noble, if you use a member stack, if you use JetBoost or something like that, you're eligible for another $250 prize. Last time, some people did some cool filtering things. Last year, they did some like drag and drop, clicky, votey, like participants into the shuttle, and just, hey, you can get creative. Colin, remind me, we want to talk a little bit about the difference of the different pages this year for last year. So make a note after we get done with these prizes. I want to talk about that. Hidden treasure. I showed you the maze. I probably showed you too much, okay? We're going to have to like rebuild the maze just because I think no, I'm kidding. I didn't give you anything away. But there's going to be 2 prizes for somebody who finds their way through that maze. And honestly, we may combine this into one because I don't know. We're going to have to test the maze. The maze may be too complicated. Best use of illustrations, 1 person who wins. Let's see. These are the pre-built illustrations. So the assets that we're going to provide, somebody who uses these in the most creative way is going to win a prize for that. Let's see. Honorable mention. This is for the judges. So this is basically for us, for the organizers. If we see people, somebody who's being super helpful, somebody who's always in Slack that didn't register as a volunteer but is acting as a volunteer, people who are really trying on the build side of things and learning, right? So last year we did some like the most improved. So day 1, maybe there was a submission that we saw improve considerably to day 2, or somebody's just giving a valiant effort. This is going to be an opportunity for us to give them some love and some credits here. Joe's going to sit down with 5 people for up to an hour to talk about whatever you want. So this can be agency consulting, this can be growth stuff, this could be whatever you want, Webflow related, business related. This is just an hour to sit and pick Joe's brain for whatever you'd like. Let's see, Super Mega Packs from Mackenzie Child. We're going to give away 10 of those. Those are great resources, lots of color packets, assets, links, clonables, stuff like that. And he's also giving Flamingo membership. So we got 3 of those. Those are closed to the public currently, but we're going to be giving 3 of those away to CloneComp winners. That's a $450 value. And then the last 2 are kind of social / exposure based things. So the best social post, we're going to be monitoring Twitter. So we have a tool that monitors Twitter for the best social posts on Twitter. If you're not on Twitter and you make a post that you'd like to be considered for the social prize, you can post it in the channel in Slack. And that'll do a couple things. It'll give us the ability to see it, but we're going to also encourage other people to help build the visibility of the participants of this competition. So one of the cool things is that we have a lot of people here that are all like-minded, right? Like if somebody posts something on Twitter, throw them a like, right? Give them a retweet. Let's help show each other's work off, and let's really use this opportunity to build everyone up that's participating in this competition. And so be sure to share your links and your social shares with us. On Twitter, we'll be pulling those automatically into an Airtable base. So Twitter's an ideal place to share, but we know a lot of people like LinkedIn, they're on Facebook, they're on whatever other platform you want to share on, so that's there to be done too. And then the last but not least prize is we want your reactions. We want to see your reactions as you explore the space. So whether that's, getting stuck in the maze, whether that's exploring some of the Easter eggs, whether that's just moving around and kind of exploring and interacting with the map, throw Loom up, record yourself just walking through the space, and share your thoughts. You can be funny, you can be silly, whatever you want. But again, just share this. And these could go hand in hand. Right, so the best map reaction could also win the best social post and walk away with $200. Okay, so and these prizes will stack. Just because you win, if the grand winner could also win the best story site, the best integration, and one of the rounds. And so now first place could walk away with like $7,000. Okay, and this is not great. Like this is not one of those like, oh, we're gonna do, we will try to like distribute the prizes as best as possible, but there's a scoring rubric in place here. And listen. Like my goal is to send somebody home stacked up, okay? I'm trying to make it so you don't have to worry about paying your bills for next month or 2 or 3 months, depending on where you live in the world. And so like that's kind of the goal here, is to really showcase the ability to build quickly and walk away with some cash, right? So in addition to showcasing Webflow and the power of the platform here, we really want to showcase that there's money behind this, right? That playing with these tools behind a screen leads to the potential to walk away with some dollar bills. And so any other thoughts, prizes? Colleen, Joe, anything else?
No, we've got a range of options for whether or not you are participating or if you're a spectator.
Yeah, Peter, this is funny. Best clonable unboxing video. Sure, right? Like it could be a social post. Get creative, get clever. Like this is selfishly, we think this will help spread the word of CloneComp, and so we kind of want the buzz. But honestly, it's about having fun. It's about seeing what kind of creative stuff we get. And yeah. You're going to be posting on social anyway, so you might as well take a swing at walking away with a couple $100 for it. So let's see. Anything else, Colleen, about the prizes? And then we'll start. This is the time. If you want to share any questions, ask them in the comments right now. We'll start answering the questions after. I think there was one more thing I wanted to talk about, the day-to-day process, if we're done with prizes.
I think we're done with prizes. I think we want to talk about the clonable, the pages, and the footer. We didn't do maybe such a good job earlier on that.
Yep. Okay, great. Okay, so last year, you started from a blank slate, and you could build on top of that. And the person who cloned it often built on the same page as the other person who built, which meant that when we were going through to review the sites, we had to scroll through the entire first story to get to the second story. And sometimes this is necessary for context, but we think we figured out a better way to do this. We're just going to do round 1 is going to be on page 1, round 2 is going to be on page 2, and round 3 is going to be on page 3. And so this way, your story should start and end either at the top or the bottom. You could do a seamless transition to the next page. You could do an interesting interaction to bring you into the next page, whatever you want, right? But the submissions themselves, we should be able to go to see your submission on day 2 and just click on the day 2 link in the footer, which I'll describe here in a second, and just open that day 2 experience. And the way we're going to group these in Airtable is going to allow us to show all of the sites that are based off of one clonable. So let's say Joe submitted a really beautiful site on day 1, and Colleen and I both cloned Joe's site. Well, on day 2, when we review these sites, we'll show Joe's V1 one time, and then we'll jump into Colleen's day 2 submission and my day 2 submission based off of that initial clonable. And so that's how we'll organize those, so we don't have to we spent a lot of time last year on the stream re-watching things that we had seen before, and while it was fun, it did get long, and so we're trying to kind of consolidate some of that and also make it easier for the judges to know what they're scoring, right? Because sometimes the lines were blurred last year for what was the original submission, what had been built out, and so this year we want to make sure that that's kind of split up across the 3 different pages. Anything I missed on that page element?
No, I think it'll be more obvious once you actually see the clonable. So
Yeah.
it may be a little hard to grab your arms around because you're not looking at something at the moment. And we'll certainly go through that again next week when that clonable gets released.
Yep. And then the last thing is there will be a footer. There'll be a sticky footer on the left side, the bottom left corner of the master clonable. This will have a link to the CloneComp homepage, which is kind of home base. So it'll have a link to get back to the CloneComp site. It will also have a day 1, a day 2, and a day 3 link. The idea here is that when you build a site, so let's say I clone the master clonable, and on day 1, I'll take my name and the URL to where I submitted my site, to where people can clone my site, and I'll change the link in that footer to have my name and the link to my showcased page. So then on day 2, whoever clones that site now has a link to your showcase page, and then they update their name and the link to where they showcase their site, right? And this happens again for the 3rd day. So if I make my 3rd round submission and I clone somebody else's day 2 submission, then my day 3 information will go in the bottom of that footer. And again, that'll have my Webflow username and a link to the showcase. That way, anytime somebody's exploring the CloneComp gallery, anytime I'm navigating the site, there's this universal element that just allows me to get back to the homepage and or see the other inspirations and pages for the sites that I cloned, okay? And so if there's any questions on that, just make sure that you're able to delete anything you want from the master site except for that piece. That piece needs to be, for it to be an official submission, that piece of global navigation needs to be on all the CloneComp sites. And this will just make it easy for us to get through and to get back to the homepage. This way you don't have to build navigation on your sites if you don't want to. You sure can if you want. But this way it won't be mistaken for your navigation or whatever, and every site will just have source references. And this is also helpful because once these get out into the public and people start sharing and exploring them, it gives credit where it's due to whoever created the different submissions. So just some stuff to keep in mind as it relates to that. Anything else I missed?
Not coming to mind for me at the moment. I mean, some of these pieces will be going and reiterating again next week once the clonable is live, and once people, things can sound like, hey, that makes sense, that makes sense, that makes sense right now, but once you start to get into it and it's competition time, that time pressure and stuff, sometimes you kind of have a little bit of a brain freeze and may have a question. So we'll be around to answer those. And there's a lot of content that's on the FAQ page. So that's really a good place to go look for at first if you're not sure about something.
Yeah. Jay's saying, did anyone bring a whiteboard? There's a lot going on here, right? But we're all super talented Webflow developers or learning to be Webflow developers, and there's the technical nature of all this, right? And so there's a lot going on, but it has to be this way for it to run smoothly at the scale we're trying to do this. And so, if you have any questions, that's what we're here for. Any thoughts, we're going to have live support in Slack throughout the entire competition. So we'll be monitoring that. We'll try to have people in different time zones so that we can answer questions regardless of whether we're sleeping or you're awake and building, et cetera. So let's see. Frank was asking, what type of integrations are there? Zapier, MemberStack. Sure, JetBoost is a great one. Noble, maybe you want to pull some data into Webflow. What else could people use, Colleen? What are the other integrations that people might want to use?
Zapier and MemberStack, I mean, those are two biggies that we kind of saw last year. I would just, just a couple words of caution of, if you pick an integration, you probably want to have it be something that has a free account or a low account, because if the next person who's coming along isn't able to maybe pick up on that work, it could impact the cloning and other kinds of things related to your work. Maybe if it's the last round of the competition, maybe that's when you decide to go all in, or maybe you don't care. Maybe you're just looking for an opportunity to say, hey, maybe play with a type form or play with, I can't think of the alternative to Zapier at the moment, but yeah.
Yeah,
so hopefully
an Integromat or one of the other ones, but yeah. And to be honest, that's going to be a real personal game time decision whether you use a integration or not. That's again, there's pros and cons. If you do it, think about ways to do it that somebody else can use moving forward. You don't want to break the experience. So just keep that in mind. Let's see. I don't know how to pronounce this name. Let's go with Swain. Schedule for volunteers. The schedule for volunteers will follow closely the schedule of events. We need volunteers during the most key moments, which is going to be during the noon live stream. So about an hour before the stream to a couple hours after the stream ends, because that's when submissions will be coming in. That's where people will have questions about how to submit. They'll need, help figuring out the footer, whatever other stuff might be needed. We also will need volunteers during the night shifts, right? Overnight, right? Because a lot of building will take place overnight. For us, but it could be daytime for you. And so we'll need volunteers during that time. Colleen and I will be monitoring this as much as possible, but at some point, we will need to sleep and we will need to explore other options for that. And so that could be a time where we'll have volunteers. Any other way to answer that? Colleen, do you have anything else?
Again, that's where things kind of go back to the FAQ. We'll be pinning, like if there's some common questions that we're starting to get a lot of, we'll, make sure that that is clarified for folks. And yeah, maybe in some ways, just try not to wait to the last minute on certain things. So if you're not sure about, hey, how does this footer element work? Get that question out there early, because, we're going to do our best to try and have folks on hand, but there may not be a volunteer always available 24/7 to answer your question.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wouldn't necessarily always expect real-time Slack support, although we will try to have real-time support. We just, you never know how it's going to work out. So if it takes us 10 minutes, 20 minutes to get back to you, we will do our best to make sure we reply to every message as they come through.
We are going to have, I was going to say, and we are going to have a help channel. So, yes. If you've already been in the Slack channel, you probably have seen just how active it is. We'll have a separate channel for those questions that will help volunteers be able to see where are people having questions. And if you do have a question, take a look and see if that question's already been asked and answered by somebody else, because it's possible that it was.
I missed so much in the comments, and I'm laughing as I'm going through. Take shrooms, get rid of space-time altogether, timey-wimey. Yeah. Nice prizes are cool. Great. Okay, so Kai, I wanted to address this. I know you're joking here, or I'm assuming you're joking, but I did want to clarify that official volunteers, so if you're an official judge, you can't participate. You're not eligible for prizes, which I think is why we're having a hard time recruiting judges, because so many people just actually want to participate. So, Kai, nobody from Finsweet, nobody from any of the sponsor organizations, nobody from any of the the official volunteers who have been training ahead of time. If you just help out and you're in Slack and you're answering questions, that's okay. What we're talking about official volunteers are the people that have gone through the training with us, who have gone kind of behind the scenes and gotten sneak peeks at different things. So if you're just helping out in the Slack channel and answering questions, that doesn't disqualify you from winning a prize. Again, unless you're part of one of the sponsor organizations or one of the organizing committee or involved with that. So just wanted to be real clear. Finsweet will not be taking home main prizes here. That's not the goal here, is to show off, like the skills of, of the people on our team or any of the other agencies. There's talented people at all of those. Next year, we are thinking about an agency tier. So we're thinking about a little bit of how to do that, but it would be cool to have an agency tier where a full agency can participate over the course of the event, but that's a whole different logistics. So this is a good question, John. Is the scoring rubric public before the competition? We may publish an asset that we're giving the judges to look at how to score sites. So this is where we want to be a little careful. We want to be as public as possible, but we're kind of making this up as we go. And so we're going to share some of that, but we won't share all of it. The voting is kind of a secret sauce. It's a weighted score that has to do with the crowd votes, the number of times the site was cloned, the official judging panel, and then there's an organizing committee judging panel. And so there's 4 stages of this rubric that we'll get together. We probably won't explain all of that. We will, however, try to provide some kind of guidance for how we're checking those decisions. And at the end, we're hoping to publish something that shows where, I don't know if we want to rank people, but at least the top, let's say 20% of submissions may get some kind of marking, just so people understand. So I don't know if that satisfies the question, John. So it's just a thought. Let's see. Colleen, did I say too much there? Not enough? What do you think?
No, I think we've been trying to balance transparency and people wanting to see where they want to react, but also, there probably will be some lower scores and not necessarily, that could be kind of hard if you're just starting out to see that. In some ways you're going to be able to see when you're going into the gallery and seeing, activity on the different projects. And that's a huge piece of these rubrics.
Yeah. Let's see. Movers asking a good question here. Is this a Scouts honor sort of thing, ensuring teams aren't competing? Because a team could technically compete and submit as an individual user. There's no way for us to track that. So it's one of those things that we, are not going to really monitor. So yeah, if somebody wanted to participate as a team and submit it as a solo, that's kind of a shitty thing. If we heard about that, we'd probably disqualify those entries. This is intended to be an individual competition, but yeah, Mover, there's no real way for us to hard check that stuff. So I don't know. I don't know. Let's see. Pro tip: install Slack now, just so you have it ready to go. Yeah, Jay, get in Slack. Everyone, get in Slack. That's the best way to keep up with everything that's going on, especially as it gets into it. Up until the stream, up until the thing starts, email's great, right? We're sending out an email here, an email there, no big deal, big announcements. During the competition, it's going to all happen fast, right? And so there will not be emails other than for major things, major announcements, but almost all real-time communications will happen in Slack. So if you're going to participate in CloneComp, go get into the Slack channel. You should get an email directly when you sign up with a link to that. And once you register on the site, you'll be able to click to log into Slack. So let's see. Any other questions you're seeing coming through? Zach's asking, can we just start this tomorrow? Let's do this. Yeah, no, we can't. We're not ready. No, we're mostly ready. I think we're 93% ready. So the last 7% will happen over the next 5 days. Let's see. You guys see any other questions there that we need to address?
You had wanted to show your dashboard. I did send you a screenshot kind of mine if you wanted to pull that up.
Is this a bad sign that I can't get into my dashboard while I'm trying to show what's happening on the site?
Well, we do have for anyone who's wondering, we do have forgot password functionality, and I've tested it, and it's all working. So if you were hypothetically to forget your password, you can recover. Recover your Slack password if you forget. So.
And a lot of this is because I was in pure scramble mode to get the stream up. I literally had to tear down my entire setup at home. If you're following me on Twitter, you'll see a picture of the setup because it was a good test because we're going to take the stream setup on the road in like 50 days. We're literally leaving at the end of August. So this was a good scramble drill test to figure out, like, can we, in a hurry, put some things together and bring it over. Rohan saying create a new account. Yeah, but I used my actual submission. So yeah, I'll get to it. I'll get to the password submission. You guys are such tough critics. Jeez. Okay, so your dashboard, Colleen, thanks for the little view here. The dashboard will have a little video element at the top here. This is going to be a video, like real-time communication thing for video. This is separate from YouTube. So we'll be streaming to this whenever we can. We'll leave little video messages, little updates. Just know every time you log in, you're going to want to check into this dashboard. And if there's a new video to watch or something, we'll have it there. If you see at the bottom here, we have our YouTube playlist embedded, and then we have updates that we'll be making in this dashboard. So in addition to Slack, this dashboard is kind of home base. If you scroll down past this that you're seeing now, you would see the Airtable, the placeholder for where the Airtable form is going to be to make the submissions. So you'll make the submissions right in the dashboard as well. And yeah, I think that's it. I think is there anything else that we need to bring up? Oh, now y'all are looking at my calendar, huh? Okay. Any other questions? Come to Knoxville. Yeah, Ezekiel, I may do that. I'm thinking between Columbus and Atlanta, we may have a chance to make a stop there. So, all right. Any other questions, thoughts? Colleen, Joe, what else is going on? Joe, what are you thinking? I know you've been kind of like quietly watching back there. It's like the sensei in the back just. So what are you postulating? What are you thinking about this over here? What's got you excited? What are you most excited about CloneComp here?
It's really no rules. You have to build this type of thing and this type of thing and present this. So this is putting more structure to the event. And I think every single year we're going to be revising this and making it much better. So it's really nice to see this next step, the part 2 of this evolution. Yep.
And I really think like last year, we were kind of flying by the seat of our pants. We had an idea, but I think we were all kind of just taken aback as it unfolded and as the competition came to life. And we were not expecting what happened last year. And I think, it was hard to explain to people that feeling, of being there in real time and doing this thing. And this year, I think, is going to be amplified more so by being in Gather and by, having the public build sessions. And that's maybe one thing we should clarify. You don't have to build in Gather. Right? Like you don't have to be in Gather at all. If you prefer to just be at home and build in your time and your space, like cool, no big deal. The Gather space is for anybody who wants to take place in kind of like a more collaborative setting. We'll be doing like hangout stuff. We'll be doing like just things that are not necessarily like related to this, to take your mind off the competition, to relax and interact, maybe network a little bit. And so just expect that to be a fun place to hang out, right? If you're stressing out and you need to like just get away for a little bit, or if you want to go build next to somebody, right? You want to build with somebody and have conversations while you do that. That's what the space is for. And so, two other things. The prizes for the maze, you don't necessarily have to be a participant to win that, right? So like the crowd could win that prize. Same thing with the social stuff. Right, the social posts and some of those don't necessarily have to be like official participants to win. So hopefully I'm not shooting myself in the foot by saying that, but I do think we want like some of those to just be come explore the space, get people signed up. We want people to be exposed to some of this stuff. So that's a good question here. Actually, let's get this from Jacob. Jacob's asking, are submissions to be fully responsive or is desktop only? So that's in the FAQ. The The official submissions will be scored on a desktop site. So you don't really have to worry too much about responsiveness. However, if other people are voting or exploring and they're clicking around and that crowd score comes into play, maybe they're clicking on their phone or maybe somebody else is checking around. So just a thought, I wouldn't spend too much time making things super responsive. But yeah, officially judging will be done on a desktop. Let's see, Peter saying, is it okay to cooperate in the personal spaces? Yeah, of course. And this space, this space will be open. We're trying to, again, make the space available moving forward, just like we did with the co-working space. And so, yeah, there's a lot of fun and places to kind of work quietly, privately. There's places to get lost here. And so, yeah, for sure. And maybe that'll be one of the interesting things that we see, right? There'll be small groups of people working together. It'll be interesting to see how they influence each other. Maybe we can start thinking about how that works into the team stuff for next year. So as long as you're not all kind of building on one project, I think we're good. But if you're just building collectively or together, I think that's great. Let's see. I'm pumped. You guys have been seemingly doing the competition at proper, and I commend you for that. I'm very excited to see what everybody dreams up. I agree, Eric. That's the most fun of this whole thing, is to see what crazy, like people made games last year where as you went through, like you had to move the cursor and using mouse cursor on hover and like hover triggers, people created like games where, you had to like get through a scene without touching any of the objects. And like, it was just really interesting to see how people are using Webflow, because people think Webflow as like website builder. And so they think, oh, navigation, hero section, blah, blah, whatever. But it's a storytelling engine. It's a blank canvas. And that's where this competition really shines, is in the ability to just, take things and make that beautiful on the web in a way that maybe somebody wouldn't necessarily expect or think. So that's where you can really stand out in this competition, is like understated, beautiful, story-driven, and a little bit of pop, a little bit of zing here and there, for sure.
I think that's one of the things that I'm really excited about with this year is, like, last year we didn't have Gather. The Gather space is just amazing. And I hope that really launches, like, use it as a springboard for inspiration and creativity, and just get those creative juices going. And, basically, yes, there are rules, but in some ways there's no limits on what you create here. However, please, don't do anything that's, we are going to be live streaming and that type of thing. So do keep some of that in mind. PG-13, please.
Yeah, please, no nudity, no obscene stuff. I mean, we probably won't bring it on, but I don't know if we'll be scrubbing them all. Just don't be an idiot, okay? Like, this is all right, anything else? I think that's it. Any other questions from the crowd here? No nudity, I'm out, says Sky Jolly. Okay, well, I think that is a wrap. Comments of the video. If you're planning on participating, go ahead and give this video a like, subscribe on YouTube. Again, go create your account on the CloneComp website. Registrations are officially open. So between now and the competition, make sure you create a participant account so you can make submissions on day one, and we will see you all next week. Jay Poucher's asking, any co-work today? I probably won't, because of my situation here. I gotta probably pack up and leave the studio. So I probably will not be able to do co-work today. I thought about.
I will not be.
Yeah.
I will not be either.
Link to the new co-work space for them to explore, but I think I'm not going to do that. We'll save that for a secret sneak peek. Sorry, Joe. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, I won't be able to do co-work either because it's Wednesday. And just because we're not going in the co-work doesn't mean you can't. That you could still go in. All the people here, we know each other. We've been talking every week. The people in the co-work are usually the same people. If you want to just go chat, go in there. It's open. Yep.
Good point. Okay. So with that, it's been real. Appreciate you all. We'll catch you on the flip side. And hey, happy clone comping. See you later. Bye. Okay. Ending stream. Just in time to